Hey there, it's Brad. Just a couple more videos as we prepare as a group for the intervention, the family meeting, the invitation, the eyewitness accounts, the change message, the change plan, verification of benefits, all these moving pieces that we bring together to help the one we love, in addition to becoming more thoughtful or aware of how we're taking care of ourselves in the midst of this crisis, how to normalize the discussion around helping the one we love while also helping ourselves. As you look on it from a more macro perspective, which I know it's hard to do right now because it's center focus, consider this just as a headline, that it's progress, not perfection. There's no perfect intervention. It feels like the perfect intervention is when the person says yes right away. But truthfully, the perfect intervention is just in doing an invitational intervention. In doing an invitational intervention, you're resetting the table for how the family is dealing with this. That's just another piece of our life in ways we're going to boundary differently, love differently, spend and care differently. Hold accountable differently, spread the story differently, look at our family history differently, do together what we haven't been able to do apart differently. So progress, not perfection, seems like a really good headline to me today to keep front of mind or front and center in your mind as you move toward your family meeting. You're doing great. You're doing what most families only think about. You're doing what most families will never do, which is an intervention. It's hard. It's scary. It seems impossible at times when our loved one is not thinking clearly over time and we get discouraged. So be encouraged. You're doing really good. I'm really proud of you. And this is exactly why I wrote my book in the first place, was to help people do it on their own, but it's not rocket science. Again, I always think it's good to have someone who's done it before with you, if you can. But I also realize that that's not the feasible for most people. And it need not be a barrier to making invitational intervention work. It's not the same as open heart surgery. Like open heart surgery, you want to make sure that you engage a professional. Invitational intervention, it's not rocket science. It's not heart surgery. So progress, not perfection. You're doing great. I want to just touch on one more thing about setting goals. I know around New Year's Day and the first of the year, your birthday, sometimes milestones in life, we set goals to try to jumpstart change. And change can be a frightening thing, and we often will set our goals so high, like I'm going to lose 36 pounds by the wedding, or I'm going to quit vaping today with no planning or no medical nicotine, which is the best way to do it, or I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep every night when you really only get 4. You know, sometimes those incremental goals are a little better. And then it's also good to lean into science and evidence-based approaches to change when you're looking at these chunks of our lives too that we want to change. When we do it in an impetuous way, we often will fail, and then we get discouraged about the whole concept of change. And so it diminishes our capacity for thinking about it in the future. And so there are dozens of schools of thought on how to set goals. So we aren't going to focus on how to set goals. Rather, I want you to achieve them. I want to think about how to be successful, and how we measure progress and master progress is, again, back to progress, not perfection. We're making changes in our life. More good, less bad does not mean you'll never drink again. When I got sober, February 5th, 2003, I did not imagine that I would be 20 years sober. I made a very simple goal. I was just going to try for today not to drink like I did. 6 months before, I'd done something similar with methamphetamines, which I was addicted to for a long time. And unlike, actually more like most people addicted to meth, I was in plain sight. I had a job, I functioned. I was not great to be married to at that time, but in other ways, I past life with flying colors. So set the stage for more good, less bad. It's not the perfect, it's not a goal of perfection, but instead one that's more tangible, more meaningful, actually, because it's actionable. Let's use vaping as an example, because nicotine addicts more people on the planet than any other thing. And unlike alcohol, which, like, a lot of people use alcohol safely and to blow off steam and as a social lubricant and as a drink, smoking, no one's advocating for the right to smoke because they love it. People will throw their hands up in the air and say, oh my God, I smoke. I wish I didn't smoke, but I can't stop. They'll advocate for the right to smoke because they're addicted, because they can't stop. So I want to use vaping and really nicotine addiction as the examples. If the goal is to quit, then there's a best practice way to quit. We celebrate baby steps. Vaping every hour can lead to vaping every 2 hours as we begin to mitigate use. Also, using medical nicotine, both the nicotine nose spray, which I think is great. I have clients that have used it for decades, haven't smoked in decades, and are very healthy as a result. Medical nicotine won't hurt you. So if somebody uses medication management, I'm all for that. I want more good, less bad. I want your lungs to be free and clear of pollution that both vaping and cigarette smoking cause. And know this, that as you set goals, when they're tethered to science and best practice, you're more likely to quit. You're more likely to reach that goal, to stay stopped, if that's the goal. And with vaping and cigarettes, if you use medication assisted therapy, that is medical nicotine, in the lozenge, I find the lozenge and the nose spray are the best ways to quit vaping or smoking. You use it as a detox, but if you can't stay stopped after you've used it as a detox, just use it. It's called switching. You know, it's transitioning from one thing that really harms you to something that you're just addicted to but won't hurt you, which is medical nicotine. And look, it's not that we master goals overnight. So if you can set the goal, honor the steps, and move towards the goal, you might take a few steps back. And then that is a setback. It's not a total fail. And if you're looking at quitting smoking or vaping, use my book, Quit Vaping. It's a great evidence-based book, a plan to quit vaping and smoking. And before you know it, if you follow best practice, you'll get there. Now, it doesn't mean that some people don't stop cold turkey and they tell the story and they raise the flag and they say, oh my God, this is great, you should do it too. The facts are, you're many more times likely to stay stopped from smoking or vaping if you use medical nicotine, if you use medication-assisted therapy in that way to quit. So I just want you to remember that magic is great to think about if you're a little boy that loves Houdini, but science is a better way to stake your claim and position your flag on working for more good, less bad in your life. Sometimes I see people waiting for the magic all their lives and then they die. They're looking for something to save them. And with invitational intervention, we usher in a change plan that hopefully is going to be evidence-based. You're not going to take your loved one to an exorcism. Although, trust me, I've been asked to do that too. If that's your thinking, text me. We can talk about it. But just know that we are changeable, adaptable creatures. We have great impact on each other. And when you practice helping another, you're also exercising a great part of humanity. That's being present, that's breathing better, thinking clearly, that's taking care of ourselves while we help another. And really, I think in that way, that powerlessness gives us control and saying, hey, I can't control everything, but I'm going to control what I can control. And I'm going to do my best. That's a great starting point just in our own civilian lives. I'm not talking about necessarily in the intervention, but I'm talking about day in, day out lives that we choose to breathe consciously and make healthy decisions. And we don't default to autopilot, and we don't, just wake up and say, oh my God, another year has passed, that we're living life, making changes, trying to be our best, better, improved self. Staying present also, and that's just reflecting on and taking inventory, helps us track our goals. It's not focusing on an unattainable future, I'm never going to drink again, but instead these smaller chunked out change steps that we can say, I'm not going to drink today, and then I'm not going to drink today when it's tomorrow. And then before I know it, I have 30 days without alcohol. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've detoxed at that point. I don't have the physical cravings, but I have often the mental cravings that I still have to work through. So I'm just going to keep it slow and simple. I'm not going to drink today. And when we do that, when we set really realistic goals for ourselves, which in the intervention is just that our loved ones say yes. It's not that they get better in the room. It's just that they say yes to the help. Those mark moments of real change in the life of the family. And each time the family can move to this spot of reflection and love and honesty and eyewitness accounts of normalizing illness and wellness, and even opening up secrets that have been held in the family, what comes out of that fertile ground is a healthier family that has more good, less bad. So it's a way that you can practice some of these tools that you've learned through this video training series for invitational intervention in your day in, day out life after the intervention. I want you to think, just think about these things, because life is short. And I know that when I landed in recovery, mine really started July 5th of 2002. That was the last day. Well, the 4th was the last day that I used methamphetamines. And on the 5th, that marked the last day I woke up with a hangover in 2003. And I'd also been struggling with an eating disorder. And I've talked about my 2-pack-a-day cigarette addiction. And so I'll answer this question that I hear a lot from families and family members. How did I mark my recovery? Was I going to quit forever? Was that the goal? Well, I think somewhere in the back of my mind, one hopes that you're going to live. That was sort of my broad-based goal. In the notion of more good, less bad, I found a lot of relief, because that was easy for me to track, and it allowed for setbacks. So happens I haven't drank, I haven't done the drug. I had a really beautiful, uninterrupted recovery. But sometimes if I have the time, I'll footnote the different dates on my journey when I talk about recovery. So February 5th, 2003, that gets the most attention, because that's when I got sober. I went to detox, medical detox, then went to treatment and got better. But that doesn't tell the whole story. And if we include the notion of more good as the measure, then we mold this concept of recovery around something that's kinder, gentler. It removes some of the shame of relapse and setbacks, pickups, and the like. And another mark in my recovery was I had my last cigarette about 18 years back. And yet, if I had one today, I wouldn't reset my recovery day because of the smoky treat that I just had. It's so crazy. Just talking about it makes my mouth water, and I haven't had one in 18 years. It just goes to show me how powerful that drug is. But I would discuss smoking after 18 years as a setback and something I desire to change. But when I pick up and practice habits that harm me and others, I want to be honest about it. So it's not something that I refrain from either going nuclear on, or picking up a drink over, like feeling so bad about myself for smoking a cigarette that I would go have a drink. This concept of more good and less bad, this makes it your yardstick for progress. I think that you'll be better for it. Not making the promise, making your ILO promise in the intervention. Do you promise you'll never drink again? I never want to hear that in the family meeting. I just want to hear a yes, that they're going to go to treatment. And More good, less bad is really the headline for all the videos, isn't it? It's how change in one direction, even by a smidge, matters so much. You know, I love that movie Titanic, and I love watching it with my folks too. But one little change, if that Titanic had made a 1 degree change 5 hours before it hit that damn iceberg, we'd have one less story of woe to tell today. We wouldn't have had that great movie, and people would have talked about, oh my God, that was such a great trip, that Titanic. Instead, the story of disaster that's made the name of the ship one that holds the story of great loss and trauma and tragedies. We have tremendous power to change. And by that, I include you, I include me, I include the ones we love. And so often these small changes, we might not even take notice of, they beget great change and a totally different destination along the way. Remember this, there is strength in numbers, strength to accomplish things that we think unable to accomplish apart. And sometimes I'm asked when on an intervention, if I'll go it alone instead of the whole group, if I'll just meet with the identified loved one. And my answer is almost always the same. I'm the least important person in the room at that moment and have the least power over time. So no, I want to train you and show you how to navigate this darkness so that you can do it when I'm not in the room anymore. And that's the same goal I have with this video series. Be encouraged and know this, that if your loved one has said no to help in the past, it means you're qualified for an intervention. I like to think of this idea that at the end of your rope is hope. So grab the rope, feel it in your hands, take it to heart and mind that what I've said and how I've taught you to activate the power in your own family is best practice to help the one you love, but also yourself too. You deserve more good and less bad too in your life. And I believe that with all my heart. And I've seen it in practice over almost 2 decades. And I know that many have used my books and this video series to prepare for and facilitate their own intervention. And that makes me feel great. You can get my book, of course, on my books on Amazon. If you can't afford a book on Amazon or the bookstore, get it at your local library. That's free, as long as you take it back on time. Also, if you click the ebook link on either side, we'll send you my intervention 101 cliff notes of how to help the one you love. And many choose to get more support either through a Zoom support intervention with one of our intervention experts or an in-person intervention with myself or somebody that I work with from my team. Just know this, that we're here to help. We do our best to help you and families just like you. So call us anytime.